The goal of the show is to help you break in and thrive in advertising. It's our Super Bowl special, ladies and gentlemen. We're recording this on Monday, February 9th, one day after the game. And we've got a good lineup for you all. We're trying to break down what happened in the big game when we're talking about advertising here. We got Jon Evans from System One. He's the Chief Customer Officer and host of the Uncensored CMO podcast, breaking down the data on which ads actually created emotion and will help the brand in the long term. And just a phenomenal person, guest, just an expert in all things ads. Then after that, we've got ad ages Tim Nudd and Brian Bonilla. Tim Nudd obviously is the creativity editor, and Brian Bonilla is the senior agency reporter. So you got the agency side, who's making the ads, what they're up to in-house versus external agency, and Tim, his creative POV. He's been doing this for years. It is a great episode for you all. To give you that ammunition, if you're going into any debates, this is a must listen, or you're a true ad sicko. You're going to love this. Let's kick it off with Jon Evans from System One. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm excited to introduce Jon Evans on the show today. He is an expert in all things branding, advertising, and effectiveness here. He works at System One. He is the Chief Customer Officer, but also he is the host of the Uncensored CMO podcast, a podcast that I've been following along for years. It's inspired me. It is much better than our show. So I recommend everybody go check it out. He has amazing interviews with some of the best CMOs and agency professionals in the world. Jon, for those that are just learning about your podcast, which would be crazy, what episode would you recommend them to start?
Gino, man, that is just such a cool question. Thank you. And look, big love back to you, man. I'm a huge fan of what you guys are doing, the energy you're bringing, the expertise you're bringing, and how disruptive you guys are. Honestly, super fan of what you're doing. So yeah, good luck to you. In terms of like where to start, I love that question. If I can cheat a bit and give maybe people listening two or three, I think Greg Hahn is one of the best thinkers on the planet. And everyone thinks about mischief in terms of they're creative, but it's the way they think that I absolutely adore. The kind of challenger brand ethos and disruption. And yeah, the strategy there is absolutely first class. So big fan of that. Maybe a surprising one, but one of my favorite episodes ever was actually not about marketing, but about hospitality. I interviewed Will Guidara, who wrote this book, Unreasonable Hospitality, about how he created the world's #1 Michelin-starred restaurant. And it's the best marketing conversation I've had in my life, because even though he wouldn't consider himself a marketer, how he got to #1 as a chef, I think is amazing. And then look, man, beyond there, Droga is always amazing. Anything by Niels is always amazing. So yeah, there's plenty out there. And if you want to think differently, Rory Sutherland is my top tip as well, because he just thinks about the world in a way that no one else does. So sorry to give you a few, but
no, those are great names.
Where I'd go.
Those are great names and great listens. So I recommend people check it out. You are, System One though is really an expert in effectiveness in advertising today. And the Super Bowl just happened. We are recording this Monday, February 9th at 10:20 a.m. We're going to try to get this out tomorrow, Jon. So I need to understand your takes from System One's data on which ads perform the best. We can get a little bit deeper, but really to start things off, can you explain to our listeners what System One is? What do you all do? How do you measure ads?
Cool. Well, there's an amazing book by Nobel Prize winning author Daniel Kahneman called Thinking Fast, Thinking Slow. In that book, he reveals that two modes of thinking: a System One mode, which is instinctive, based on feeling, and System Two, which is slower, based on rational thought. And basically, we think less than we think we think. The more we feel about something, the more likely we are to buy. And we applied that science to how people respond to advertising. So it turns out that if you feel good after you've watched an ad, you're more likely to remember that ad, remember the brand, and buy it in future. And so our star rating is basically a measure of how strong the emotional response was to the ad and whether those emotions were positive or negative. And that star rating correlates better than the earnings of a quarterback and the number of points they score and the brand's market share. So if you were to take like career earnings and go, how many points do they score? Our system is more accurate than even that as a way of predicting whether the brand's going to be successful or not.
Oh my gosh, incredible. So yeah, I mean, there's pundits and people on LinkedIn are talking, especially about the Pepsi zero sugar ad, whether the distinctive brand assets were used correctly or not. Is it a Coke ad? Is it a Pepsi ad? I know we were talking that before we started recording. And this is the day, like the Monday and Tuesday, everybody's going to give their thoughts here, different ways of doing it. So what is System One's top performing ads from this year's Super Bowl? Can you give us a few that performed extremely well?
I certainly can. Let's just quickly start on the Pepsi versus Coke ad, by the way.
Yeah,
because that is in the top 10. And it's a really important point to make this because LinkedIn went into a complete meltdown last week over that ad and basically divided everybody. So the traditionalists basically said, why would you advertise your competitor in a Super Bowl spot? I mean, you must be crazy to put your competitor's brand in a Super Bowl spot. And 99 times out of 100, I would agree with them. However, Pepsi are famous, and in fact this year is 50 years of the Pepsi Challenge. Their entire brand is based on being an alternative to Coke, and Coke dominates in most markets around the world. There aren't very many markets where Pepsi is bigger than Coke, so they need to do something disruptive. And what they did by having the bear pick the zero sugar Pepsi was utter genius, because we all know the bear is Coke's bear, but they actually sort of stole the bear and managed to get the bear to drink Pepsi. I thought it was funny. And our testing showed that everyone left watching the ad feeling good about Pepsi. They remembered Pepsi more than Coke, and their main association was that Pepsi was better. So I think they pulled that one off. Although it's one of those examples where normally I would suggest you don't have your competitors in your ad, but they pulled it off, and it shows in our ratings because they appear in the top 10.
Okay, now, they're in the top 10. Who else is
they
in the top 10?
They are in the top 10. Exactly. Well, shall we go? Well, let's go down from the top, shall we?
Let's do it, John.
Yeah, let's do it, because I have to say there's a lot to be learnt by the who came top and number two. So the top two spots were the same organisation, the NFL, which I think's wild.
That is wild.
That out of the 80 or so adverts, they do two. And they take the top two spots. So their top one was 5.9. Our scale only goes to 5.9. So in terms of creating an emotion, what they did it was called You Are Special. That film resonated with absolutely everybody. It made everybody feel happiness and, a strong sense of pride. So they absolutely nailed it. And then their second spot, Champion, also almost topped the score as well at 5.7. Now, the NFL have a lot of history. Obviously, because they put on the whole show themselves, but they've been advertising consistently for many years. They're always at the top of our tables, and they learn every single year. They improve what they do just an extra little bit. And I think one of the reasons is they've had a very long-standing relationship with their creative agency, 72 and Sunny. And they've formed this amazing partnership between them where the CMO, Tim, really entrusts the agency to go and do the best possible work. And that kind of trust between client and agency is one of the reasons why they keep getting better every single year. So
those Glenn Cole, Tim Ellis working together.
Massive. It's like Batman and Robin, man. It's like, just the ultimate dynamic duo, those two. So yeah, huge credit. And then if I go down the list, you see consistency comes out again. So if I pick number 3 and number 5, both from the same organisation, number 3 is Budweiser, 5.6. Number 5 is Michelob Ultra at 5.1. Same organisation. And again, we've been testing their ads for many years, and we see the same thing again. People love familiarity. And this is a Daniel Kahneman insight as well, is that basically familiarity breeds contentment, not contempt. And the issue as marketers is we just get bored of our idea so quickly, but the audience love to see the same thing again. So the Clydesdales, or the M characters, these are things that brands should be investing in. And in fact, our System 1 data shows we call it a fluent device, like something that's associated with your brand that's in the advert. So, like MM's characters, or you're not you when you're hungry. It can be an idea, or the Clydesdales, it could be an animal. And what we found is that if you have a celebrity, you are no more likely than average. Your score is the same. So 2.7 is the average score. 2.7 is also the average score with celebrities in it. But with fluent devices, that goes up. So you see this big uplift where if you own a device, as we call it, you're more likely to be remembered and you're more likely to provoke a positive emotion.
What are some other fluent devices? So you said the M&M's characters, you're not you when you're hungry, the tagline, that line. What else comes top of mind to you? Student of the industry, always learning. What else can we
100%.
reference?
The one I would invest more in if I were making advertising myself would be music and jingles. Because music and jingles has an amazing way to stick in our mind. And because we measure so many adverts, what we see is that the music has this amplification effect on the score. If you get the music right, and if you've got a jingle that's associated with your brand, I know jingles are a bit out of date. I mean, it feels like, jingles from the 1970s and 80s, but actually having a good jingle, or even like it could be like the Netflix, da-dum, or the McDonald's, I'm loving it, those little devices that trigger things in our memory and associate that sound with the brand are hugely powerful. Definitely think about music. Strap lines are obvious, I know, but I mean, strap lines are things that are built over many years. So many brands tend to sort of give up on their famous strap line. Obviously the classic would be Nike, just do it. But just do it is so valuable to the brand. And they don't need to say Nike. Just do it appears, and we all know exactly what which brand we're talking about. So yeah, strap lines, music, ideas, characters. The Pillsbury Doughboy, for example, would be one.
Mm-hmm.
Insurance is a good category. Geico Gecko, another one. I quite like the Dun Kings as well. I think they've done a good job of like kind of branding.
Yeah.
They've sort of branded a few celebrities as their own, because the thing with celebrities is you start looking at Super Bowl ads and go, which celebrity ad is this one? Whereas actually I think they've done a good job of kind of, creating an association between the celebrity and themselves.
Yeah. So of all the 5-star ads, John, that you guys found, what do they have in common emotionally, would you say?
Yeah, really good question. I think what 5-star ads usually do is they tap into a very universal human emotion. And I think one of the traps sometimes advertisers fall into is thinking, I know this is going to sound a bit weird, thinking the Super Bowl is about the football. And actually the Super Bowl's not. It's about everybody coming together and sharing an experience and having fun. And the football is kind of a bit of a byproduct of that. I know obviously it means a lot to the fans and the teams, of course. But it's the brands that do well on our database tend to be the ones that find the most universal human truth. Then they tell a very powerful, authentic story. And one mistake that many advertisers make is they try and tell too much. But the best ads, if you take Lay's from last year, you take Huggies from a few years ago, they'll tell one story over the 30 or 60 seconds. And it's like a story that unfolds, like a mini drama. They think in terms of mini dramas rather than loads of celebrities, lots of scenes, lots of action. And actually what happens is when you have too much action in an ad, you actually distance the audience from getting emotionally connected with what you're trying to say. So it's better to tell one person's story well than try and tell everybody's story badly, kind of thing. So definitely universal truth, tell one story well, and try and find the emotion in the product. So Lay's were a good example last year. The little girl in the farm. She's pulling out potatoes from the soil. It's a very relatable, but it's authentic to Lay's, and we all know that, and therefore it kind of connects emotionally. So, and surprisingly, actually, very very few of the 5-star ads on our database actually have celebrities in. They tend to be more authentic to the brand. I mean, Clydesdales, for example, on Bud. The Huggies ad that, as I mentioned, that won as well. I mean, probably the exception, Michelob, they won last year. They had Lionel Messi in their ad, but actually it's quite rare that the most successful ads have celebrities in.
And, when you find that, is there any insight into whether like comedy can do better or like more tearjerker, or does it not really matter? Like there's not a specific bias to one.
No, it's a good point, actually. So my colleague Orlando Wood, who's like the master guru when it comes to this kind of thing, he's actually classified the different types of happiness. And humour is actually the most powerful type of happiness. So he's looked at different... So happiness could be awe-inspiring, it could be uplift, it could be amusement, it could be pride. And actually humour is one of the most effective, positive emotions you can create in an ad. So yeah, humour for sure is without doubt one of the most important things you can do in a Super Bowl ad.
Okay. And then, I want to get into some specifics here. There was a war within the game, right? This was the AI battle here between Gemini, Claude, ChatGPT, and then also you got a little bit of meta with Oakley. So help me understand and navigate, and with your database, which one won the battle of the Super Bowl within AI?
Love this. And look, this year was the big battle between the AIs. I think this was the AI year. In previous years, we've had Bitcoin and other categories, NFTs. This was the year of AI for sure. In fact, 1 in 5 ads last night was an AI ad. So that's, literally 20%, right? So that's how many we saw. Overall, they performed less well than the average. So the average was 2.7 stars. AI average was 2.1. So significantly underperforming. Now, I should say, by the way, that new advertisers do tend to do worse than existing advertisers. There is usually a gap. So maybe it's down to that. But if I go into the brands and which ones did well and which ones didn't, well, what we found was the winning AI by some margin actually was Google Gemini. They got 3.5. Man, I love that ad because what they got absolutely bang on was it wasn't about the AI, it was about your life and how AI could enhance your life. So in the story that they were telling, there's a family moving home and they're trying to imagine what the young boys, bed and bedroom furniture would look like in the new house. And of course, Gemini is able to brilliantly move the furniture, paint the room blue, and you just hear this lovely interaction between the mum and the son as they discuss, what might happen. And I think that's a really good use case because they've remembered that it's a fundamentally human experience moving house, and it's turning a house into a home is deeply personal. And actually they tapped into that emotion, and AI is positioned as helpful, not as a replacement for human tasks, which would feel scary, but as a helpful way of enhancing a very emotional experience. So they were number one. If we draw the pool quite broad in terms of tech, then Oakley Meta would be number two. I mean, that was a great example of, again, they showed the technology in the context of how you use it. So, skiing down the hill, snowboarding, cycling, running, etc., they were good. Amazon Alexa, actually, as well, that scored 3.1 star. And then ChatGPT did okay, 2.5 stars. So not as well as I thought they'd do. They had a very human story. It's kind of like a farmer handing over to his daughter the kind of keys to the farm, and she's taking all his old handwritten notes and turning that into AI to help her plan the harvest and so on. So I think it was quite clever what they did, but it didn't get beyond 2.5 star. Now, all the others, and there were quite a lot of others, all the other AI ads are all 1 star. So generally, most AIs that talk about the product, that have robots in, that talk about automation, all those things did pretty badly.
Absolutely. Yeah. I really, Gemini seems to have won that, but I hope all these these companies actually take the learnings and, don't program the softwares to want to take over and really to help our lives. And I think that's the real human fear that we're hearing on podcasts that people are talking about. It is scary stuff. So I think there's a lesson there. Hopefully they can all accomplish that. Overall, though, backing things up, looking at this at a macro, we were talking before. Can you talk about the polarity between the high performing ads and the low performing ads and what you're seeing within the database?
Yeah. No, there's a huge polarity. And this year, that polarity is probably more extreme than it ever has been. And really, you're seeing a divergence between typically CPG type brands where they understand that brand is everything. And they've built brands over decades in many cases. And so they really, really know how to tell a story and how to kind of capture an audience. And what we're seeing is those brands consistently getting better every year. We've seen this year more 5-star ads than we have ever. Well, I say ever in the 7 years that we've been testing Super Bowl ads. But we've also seen more 1 and 2-star ads this year than we ever have done. And as I say, the average dropping. So what we're seeing is that on the one side, there's never been more technology, AI created ads and ads about AI. And most of them, apart from a couple of exceptions, are scoring 1 and 2-star, which is not very effective. Now, there's an element to which that's a rookie, I call it a rookie bias, because we often look at kind of rookie advertisers that are advertising for the first time, compare them to established advertisers, and there's quite a big delta. So average for a rookie is about 2.1, average for established advertisers about 3.1. So, new advertisers do have a disadvantage with established advertisers. Just simply they've not put the training in, they've not learned, they're doing it for the first time. Or as my hypothesis would go, when you have a feature-rich product like Meta glasses or AI, you want to talk about the product. Whereas if you've got Lay's, your basic chips or your Michelob Ultra, your beer, in those categories, you're forced to lean into emotion and tell a story. So ironically, the limitations of the category that those brands operate in actually often forces them to think more creatively about how they tell the story.
So what's the takeaway from that, John? What can we tell either the aspiring advertising professionals or those that are in the industry that are working at an agency today? What do they need to know to be better for this next Super Bowl or within the ads that they create for campaigns on the day-to-day?
100%. Okay, number one is firstly understand that emotion regulates our attention. So try and find the emotion in the products, emotion in the story, emotion in the brand. Because if you can generate a strong emotion, you're more likely to get attention, you're more likely to be remembered, and as our data shows, you're more likely to have good outcomes in both the short and long term. So firstly, find the emotion. In terms of how you do that, the second thing is think in terms of right brain rather than left brain. So right brain is storytelling, characters, music, humor, accents, all those things. Think about it as you're putting on a drama. This is 30 seconds of a mini drama, rather than left brain advertising is tell them about the product again and again, have the logo, the words, close up on the pack shot, get the features and benefits in every scene. That's very what we call kind of left brain advertising. So think definitely in terms of right brain over left brain in terms of how you deliver it. And the third thing I'd say is consistency is your friend. So the really good advertisers, the ones that nail it year in, year out, have been doing this for a long time. They get better. They learn by testing. They learn by seeing the results. And what we find in our data is that familiarity breeds contentment. So people get familiar. So having a character that people recognize, having a logo that people are familiar with, having a jingle that people like, these things aren't just nice to haves. These are some of the fundamental ways in which we build bonds with the brand and we remember them when we're in a buying moment. So yeah, definitely focus on consistency, I'd say, as
Beautiful, John. Thank you so much for coming on, sharing your wisdom. Where should people go to learn more about System One and your show?
Thanks, man. Double plug. I like this. Well, System One, our website is system1group.com. The reason we're called system1group.com is there is actually another company called System One that do something a bit different to what we do. So it's a nightmare when it comes to SEO, I promise you. But yeah, System One Group is the one you want to check out in terms of website. And then me, so Uncensored CMO, wherever you get your podcasts. I would be honoured for anyone listening to this that wants to give it a listen. And I hope that they can learn something from the show.
Well done, John. Thank you so much for coming on. All right, that was the data lens from System One, all about emotion, memory, and why consistency keeps winning on the biggest stage. We're going to shift now from measurement to editorial judgment and creative craft. Tim Nudd and Brian Bonilla from Ad Age are up next. They have their 5-star picks, their debates inside the newsroom, and stories behind the spots that have the industry split. Let's hear from them now. Tim Nudd, Brian Bonilla, welcome back to the Super Bowl episode. This is our third time doing this, year 3. I always look forward to this with you guys. Really just want to take the time to get your expert opinions on the Super Bowl ads, and then Brian on the agencies as well, like what we're looking at between in-house versus external creative agencies. And Tim, of course, you speaking on which one's got the highest creative ranking. How does that sound for a run a show to you guys?
Sounds great.
Love it.
Great. Then for whoever wants to take it, I think you guys do a great job of ranking the ads. It seems like there's a few publications that do this every single year, but people really look forward to the Ad Age ranking. Which ones got the highest ranking by Ad Age?
Well, we had 4 5-star spots, and those were Anthropic, Squarespace, Dunkin', and Coinbase. So I know Coinbase is a little polarizing, but, I love to have them on there because, it's great to see brands do something different. So many brands just do the same formula. It's like, you got to get some credit for taking a risk, even if the risk doesn't always pay off. I thought that what they did was great. And then those other 3 spots, I think, were just great craft. The Anthropic one was really funny. And those were our top 4. But, I think overall it was a stronger year than usual, much, much stronger year than last year. I went back and looked at our top 5 picks from last year, and I think all 5 from this year are better, or would have knocked out all 5 from last year, with maybe the exception of Nike last year, which was strong.
Right.
But from 2 to 5 last year, any of the top fives this year would have knocked out those. So I think overall agencies can be proud of what they did.
Now, remind the folks and myself, is this pure creative ranking here? What you guys, that's the parameter. Is there's no effectiveness score or anything like that? It's just your picks there.
Well, I mean, listen, on Super Bowl night, I think, creativity and effectiveness are more closely aligned generally because your goals are just to, entertain and to make people feel good about your work, about your company and your brand. Yeah, I mean, we're not necessarily, we're judging all these, most of them before they even air on the game. We're writing the reviews based on the creative work. So yeah, I guess it's primarily a creative ranking. But on Super Bowl, I think the calculus on Super Bowl is just to engage people, make a good spot, make a campaign that's going to resonate. And so in that sense, I think it does measure effectiveness as well.
Yeah. There's some alignment there. Super Clio, which is picked by the ad nerds out there, the people that are working in the industry, they selected Claude and Anthropic. You guys gave that a 5-star as well.
We did, and we also did a separate story with our top five, and we ranked Anthropic as number one also.
Oh, nice. Then, but conversely, I got low ratings on the ad meter. Let's talk about that. What is that? What do we need to understand for the listeners out there when there is that disconnect? When it's
Actually,
yeah, go ahead, Brian.
yeah, okay. I did a story recently about how the brands approach the day after the Super Bowl. And I learned a lot about how they think about the ad meter. And I think it's it's a very good ranking for like the entire scope of America, maybe. But you got to understand, like, ad meter is getting like people's opinions like the date or the night of the Super Bowl. And it's like going overnight. So, like any ranking, it has its like, there's no perfect ranking out there. I think brands know by now that they're looking for different, goals, right? For Coinbase, like Tim was saying, I think, crypto in general has such a negative sentiment right now. I think for them, they were just like, let's create a good vibe and connection with Coinbase. And I think for that type of spot, that's going to get more like influencer and social media traction than I think like just a general like, oh, look, that's cool, like type of creative. So I think, it's I wouldn't look at the ad meter as like an end all be all. I think a lot of brands don't view it that way either. But listen, being number one on the ad meter gets you a lot more press, a lot more, coverage. So it's definitely a positive as well.
Yeah, I would say, Gino, that ad meter tends to reward like heartwarming, kind of broadly appealing stuff. There's a reason why Budweiser does really well often. There's a reason why Lay's is very high this year. Stuff that's a bit more edgy, sarcastic humor, like Anthropic, doesn't necessarily connect in the same way with a broad, middle America. And listen, ad meters, had some really weird results before. I think, the M&M Chrysler spot in 2011 finished 45th or something, and that was the reason why Nicole and the Clios started Super Clios, because some of the really great work that was being made was falling so far down in the ad meter that they felt like there was another prize should be awarded for it. So ad meter is great for just a broad cross section of middle America to see what is resonating in that sense. But I don't think it's I really don't think it's a one-to-one measure of really great work.
I also think you got to think about like, I think this year's Super Bowl was so interesting because there were so many like prevalent conversations tied to the ads, right? You have the AI conversation, you have the GLP-1 conversation, you have the economy conversation. It's just, so you also got to remember, people might be voting with those biases in mind or those issues in mind. Like, are you pro AI? You may not even be thinking about the ad. You may be thinking about who's making the ad. So I think you also got to remember that part of it as well.
Yeah.
Gino, did you have a favorite or one or two?
Yeah. I thought I did a prediction show. I said that for Super Clio, it should be Claude, but I didn't think that they were going to award it in that room because it's still AI. It was going to replace creativity. There's that, that issue there. And so then I went with my prediction for the Super Clio was Pepsi Zero Sugar. What did you guys give that?
Yeah, we gave it 4 stars.
4 stars.
Which, I mean, I think we had more 4-star and above ads this year than we've ever had. Again, I think it was a strong year.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's funny. Like there's a connection between Pepsi and Anthropic, right? Which is these are challenger brands kind of poking the bigger player in the category. So I think it's always fun when brands kind of go after each other
Yeah.
on the game, and it was cool to see Pepsi use the bear.
And I'm curious, Tim, have you ever seen, or can you recount such a jab in the Super Bowl like this? What comes top of mind?
Well, I mean,
Like what
the
Pepsi did?
greatest, the greatest Super Bowl I'd ever made was the ultimate jab, right? It was 1984. It was Apple going after IBM. So that's, I referenced that in my story about Anthropic too, which is like Anthropic seems to be becoming kind of Apple-like in the way that they're embracing their sort of smaller, punchier nature. They can have like a point of view that's a bit sharper, I think, than OpenAI right now. Like if you look at OpenAI's spot in the game, I think it was really kind of broad and like montagey and like wasn't super dialed in on a point of view. Unlike the ads they released last week online, which were much more use case
Yeah.
based. And it was interesting. I don't know. I think they had different options that maybe they could have gone to market with on Super Bowl, and they went with this one that they
Yeah.
made in house. And I don't think it really broke through that much. I don't know where that finished on ad meter, but I feel like Anthropic grounded their message in something really specific and really sort of anti their competition to kind of make the point that Claude is for you. We're not going to sell ads in Claude because you don't deserve ads. Like that's a pretty strong point of view for most people who don't know much about AI and don't want to be served ads all the time. And, I think OpenAI maybe got caught up a little bit more in like the aspirational, like big picture, like we're going to change the world kind of thing. And I don't think it played that well last night.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we'll see if Claude can stick with that take that they're never going to put. They won't put ads in their software.
Well, yeah. So I don't know if you probably know this, but they changed the line in the ad between the
No, I did
YouTube
not.
version. Yeah, the YouTube version last week that they put out online said ads are coming to AI, but not to Claude. And in the version that aired during the game yesterday, it said there's a time and place for ads. Your AI conversations shouldn't be one of them. So I'm still trying to get the spot actually from Mother because we'd like to put that up on our site. But they changed it, I think, maybe to hedge. I'm speculating, but maybe to hedge against in the future. Maybe they will have ads in Claude in the future.
Still a pretty bold thing to do, though, even with the change of line, which helps a little bit. But you did a complete jab at them, so they should probably stick with it for a couple of years. We'll see.
Yeah, well, it's funny. Like this whole week has been funny between Anthropic and OpenAI. Like OpenAI totally took the bait when the ads rolled out and kind of responded and complained about the ads and everything. And then Anthropic changed their line for the spot, and then OpenAI started jawing about that and like they're changing their message. Like the back and forth between these two companies has been kind of wild since. Like,
how about was it Sam Altman that said we have more free users in Texas than you do,
Yeah.
like as a whole company, something?
I mean, it felt to me a little bit like a little thin-skinned to like stoop to responding, but
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, will Coca-Cola respond to Pepsi? And it seems like they haven't yet.
they would never. We talked about this internally here at Adage, like the lessons, if you follow marketing, for the past 30 years, like the lesson there is to not respond, or if you do respond, kind of make a joke of it. Don't respond to a joke with an essay, I think was the phrase that I heard. And it's like, that's good advice.
Yeah.
I think in those cases, right, like Coke, I mean, they're so clearly the front runner, right, in the beverage space that they almost don't need to respond. I think OpenAI and just AI in general is such a new space still that I could see why OpenAI maybe took it way more personally than a Coke would, because it's still being defined who's going to be the top dog in AI. And, OpenAI and ChatGPT are the most popular from a consumer perspective, but there's still a game to be played, right?
Yeah. Well, if you look at those two ads as well, one was made in-house, one was made by Mother, one of the best shops today, and fantastic independent agency. Felix Richter over in London is a global CCO. The ad is just so much better and strategic and pointed. And I believe, like, we know from your guys' reporting that ChatGPT, OpenAI, they've worked with Isle of Any in the past for the brand platform that they established. Do we have any insight on why they went in-house on this that's public?
No, we don't have any public insight on that, but this is not to shortchange OpenAI's in-house creative department. It's stocked with really great people, and I think they legitimately feel like this is the right message. We may not agree, but I think that they're sticking to that. I know that they've clearly been working on different types of creative over the last few months. I think they had options going into Super Bowl, but this is what they wanted to say.
Yep.
It
This
promotes
the
Codex.
leadership.
This is, they have a new app that they want to focus on. I would quibble with again, the montage nature of the spot, but I feel like this is the stance they want to take in that moment, and long term, perhaps it's the best one. Who knows?
I think it wasn't a bad ad like from a technical standpoint. I think we're rating them based on like is it a good Super Bowl ad, right? And it's like that's a whole different ball game. And yeah,
If this would have launched, in July, I'd be like, oh, this is a good campaign.
Well, and it's not that far off from Anthropic's campaign that they did with Mother,
hmm
which was way more montagey like a few months ago.
good point.
But the timing and context around it being launched at the Super Bowl,
100%. Something sharper on the Super Bowl gets more attention.
Can we talk about the behind the scenes of Isle of Any, Mother, and how they all have a commonality? They all worked for a majority of these people. They're all friends, or they all work together. I believe it was at Droga 5. Have you guys talked about this internally? But the campaigns that are feuding against each other, or building against each other, a lot of these creatives are from the same coaching tree.
Yeah, I mean, we have talked about it, and it's not just on the agency side, but it's on the client side at some of these big AI companies. There's like the Meta diaspora where all these people left Meta, and a lot of them are at these companies, and a lot of them worked with Droga when they were at Meta. So that's how these relationships started, I think, years ago. And so, yeah, it's a fairly small group of folks kind of working on these AI campaigns, both on the agency side, and on the client side. It's interesting. I mean, you have a lot of creative firepower. And one thing I will say, if you think back like 20 years ago, or even 10 years ago, 15 years ago, to what Facebook was doing, how they were marketing themselves, like they didn't really have that much of an appreciation for brand advertising.
hmm
And I think these AI companies actually do, because they come from the folks in the marketing departments there, running the marketing departments there, come from, like these Wyden and Droga kind of relationships where they understand what brand advertising can do for you. Like the Facebook people 20 years ago, had a real dismissive view of branding. They were like, oh, well, this is the digital generation. Digital marketing is the way to go. We're not going to bother with brand. And like, I think OpenAI and Anthropic and others kind of are taking the opposite stance. Creatively, it makes for a really exciting category right now.
Yeah.
AI, because like you say, you do have these really creative companies kind of doing ads for them. And
It is
it's all
nice.
down to it's all down to the folks coming from that brand marketing background.
And then, and we failed to talk about Gemini. Gemini also had a spot. I've talked with Jon Evans before this at System One, and that one's for their rankings and database. That one performed the highest of the AI because I guess that ad specifically did not invoke a lot of fear within the users or the consumers that were watching it, because it was being used, he says, to help like your life. It's like in addition to. But I'm curious what you guys thought about the Gemini spot.
Well, I think humanity is the clear kind of like that all these AI companies are trying to convey, right? That they're more than a tech company, they help humanity in some way. Even if you look at the ChatGPT ads that launched earlier last year, I believe, it was like how to help me like make a recipe, right, for a date. Like that was the whole premise, right? So I think the Google ad I thought was really well done from marketing a product, right? You invoke like something that everyone deals with, right? Buying a new home and how is your child gonna decorate their room? So I know like our editor Judy loved that spot. I think that probably hit really well with like parents and people who aren't familiar, right, with AI search. Like that's the whole premise, right? Like how can this help me today versus like creating this great narrative about the future of AI and like confusing people, right? So Tim, I don't know if you wanted to add anything else.
Yeah, I mean, that one was really classic Google, right? Like Google loves to pull the heartstrings. That's like their whole approach on Super Bowl, and that does really well. What I found interesting with the Gemini ad is like there's a parallel to the Google ad that ran actually way back on the 2010 Super Bowl. I don't know if you've ever seen it, Gino. It's called Parisian Love. and it was very similar. It opens like on a blinking cursor in the Google search bar. And Parisian Love, if you watch it, I think it's a 60-second spot as well. It's a complete story told through Google search. The person's searching for something, and it's the entire thing kind of describes a relationship from him, the guy who's searching, meeting this woman and moving to Paris to be with her. And the Gemini thing is very, very similar to that in setup. Where I think it's different though is like 10 years ago, 15 years ago, everybody used Google search the same, and they used it the same way. We all knew exactly how it worked. We went into the search bar and we searched for something we needed and it popped up in the search results. The difference with AI is nobody uses it the same way. Like when you look at the Gemini ad, like what I have thought to like take photos of my house with nothing in it and then fill it with like photos that I had on my, like that's a use case that's like pretty niche. And like no one's ever, very few viewers will have actually done that. So I think the difference between Google advertising 15 years ago and Google advertising now, and in fact the whole AI space now, is like it's hard to land on a universal human truth in AI that everybody can relate to because everyone's using it differently. So that relatability factor, which is really critical in marketing to make people feel like you know them and they know you, it's kind of missing a little bit from AI. And I think all these companies are kind of circling around like, how does the storytelling work if nobody is using this product in the same way?
What's funny about that ad is that I've actually used AI that way, like where like I'll take a picture of my living room and like I'm like, how would this look here? And I've done it before. So when I saw that ad, I was like, oh, this is like I felt like I could relate now to a situation. So yeah,
I mean,
Got it.
you think about the Anthropic ad, it's not really about AI at all.
yeah.
It's about do I want to be served ads while I'm online?
Do I have my your best interest in mind?
Yeah, it's like a values proposition, not like a tech. Here's what AI can do for you proposition. And I think there's a reason why that's more compelling to people because they don't understand AI typically, like in a broad sense. But they do understand not wanting to be served advertising like all over their life.
Yeah.
So I think AI is at a really interesting like inflection point where the storytelling is kind of all over the place.
Hmm.
It's going to be interesting to see where it goes.
Yeah, yeah. And then I want to get back to Coinbase because that was not pre-released, but the people were seeing that for the first time. Uh, and that was with Joe Staples, his first foray into the brand side, I believe, at Coinbase, because he was previously at Mother and before that, a long time at Wyden. And he is a crazy guy. Like, I was not surprised to see some sort of creative risk like this taken by him. Also hijacking the Sphere. It was playing at the Sphere as well. You guys gave it a 5-star. It finished last in the ad meter. I know we talked about that divide already, but what did you guys think about it? Because it's giving me throwbacks to the bouncing QR code. What was that, 2022, I believe?
Yeah.
It's giving me throwbacks to when Tubi hijacked the game, thinking that it changed channels. It's giving me throwbacks, I believe, when Reddit flashed for like a second. I think that was like maybe that was regional, but there are these hacks that happen. And I don't think we had one last year, if I recall. So it's good to have one back in here. Would you guys put that in the same category as a hack? Is that what did it for you guys to get 5 stars as well?
I think we had people try it last year. I don't think DoorDash wasn't last year, right? Where you were in a contest. That was 2 years ago, I
Yeah, it was
believe.
2 years ago. Yeah.
I think last year, I think Duracell had an ad where it was like a fake Tom Brady or something, which I think they were trying to kind of hack it. And
I
then
do remember, yeah.
Rocket Mortgage had the sing along right after their ad. They had the stadium sing along to it. So I think what I've noticed over the years is that interactive ads and hacking is becoming like this like kind of crucial thing for a lot of brands now. You had the Mr. Beast, puzzle, which I don't even think people have solved yet, for Salesforce. The Lay's ad, right, had a QR code at the end where it was like you can win. I don't know, like they'll send you a fresh bag of chips or something, right? And like, so I do think brands are really leaning into that more. And I think what made the Coinbase thing interesting from like what I saw and the people I was talking to, a lot of people were like singing along to it apparently. And then at the end, when they found that it was Coinbase, there was some people were booing it, some people were not feeling happy about that, because they felt a little tricked, So I'm curious. I do think the Coinbase ad success will be determined in the next few weeks when they can actually determine like how many people are sharing it on social. Like, did we get any influencers to, sing along and like what's the sentiment, right?
Yeah, I heard that as well about the, the booing or whatever, or people being a little disappointed. I
Yeah.
mean, listen, like I think I said this earlier, but like, I think you have to hand it to brands or give them some kudos for doing something different. It is kind of a risk to like not do the formula. And that spot was they worked with Isla Vinny on that spot. And I think I don't really know. I think it's first of all, I think it's hard to gauge the reaction of something like that because like who knows what happened in living rooms across America. I spoke to the Coinbase folks this week about that campaign, and I think they were like, we don't know what's going to happen. Like we're just look. How do you measure joy, or how do you measure? I guess you should measure frustration too, but based on what we've heard
Yeah.
about this, about how it went over. But I think the antecedent is QR code, but it's very different than QR code as well. It's similar in its interruptive sort of disruptive nature, but QR code was a customer acquisition thing. And it was way more actionable, right? Like if you see a bouncing QR code for 60 seconds, it wasn't even a 30, it was 60 seconds. People are going to be like, I got to scan that. Like, what the hell is that? Like, that's very, very actionable. And there's no duping. I think that what they were trying here was almost the opposite. It's like a pure brand play, not a
It is the
performance
other
play.
side. It's the exact other side of the
It's the
funnel.
exact opposite.
Yeah.
But it's connected too, because it's like sort of similar in the way that it kind of hijacks or like you say, like hacks the broadcast. So I loved it from that conceptual point of view that it's in Coinbase's DNA to do this kind of thing on the game. I wonder if they knew ahead of time that they presented it as like, here's a gift to the viewers. Like they said, like when I talked to the CMO there this week, she said like, what if we did 100% gift? Like the entire ad is a gift to you. But clearly it's not, because when the Coinbase name pops up at the end, it's suddenly like not 100% a gift. It's like it's a sales message. So, I think that they were toying around with whether this could work. And that was what's so interesting to me about it is like, I don't think you know sometimes until you do it. I think you can predict maybe what's going to happen. But like that to me, that like livens up the game when you have an advertiser just trying something like that.
Yeah.
You got to remember where Coinbase was when the QR code ad launched, right? It was a time where there was a lot more interest in crypto. Coinbase was trying to just acquire as many customers as possible. And a lot of the crypto ads at that time were very focused on the opportunity, the freedom you get, right, from crypto. And I think Coinbase stood out because they were viewed as kind of innovative by doing something different. And I think they're sticking with that kind of feeling of innovation as they continue.
Yeah, that's a great point.
What were some of the other ads that maybe you guys debated or were more controversial, like polarizing within the ad age offices?
I know Judy really hated Squarespace.
Yeah,
And like that's one of my absolute favorites this year is like Squarespace. They always do something awesome. I also spoke with David Lee, who's the CCO at Squarespace of their in-house group, and he's got the perfect description of what they do, which is like, we want to show up and be the A24 indie film, like with all the Marvel blockbusters on the Super Bowl. We want to be, and this was like perfect example of that. Like literally, it's like Yorgos Lanthimos and Emma Stone. It's really dark and different. It's shot totally different.
Yeah.
It's kind of negative and violent and dark, but like funny at the same time. So to me, I loved it, but I can see, I don't know where it finished on the ad meter. I can't imagine it very high on the ad meter.
That's interesting. Ellie is our producer and just loves movies and was familiar with the director and was a big fan. And I was not didn't hit for me, and that's perfectly fine. But she was all in on it. But also, it's like Squarespace is dominating the domain sector. Like it seems like there's no GoDaddy.
They acquired Google Domains last year, which is why this big push toward domains. They started a big domains campaign in December, actually, and this is kind of an extension of that, actually.
It was like all the website builder campaigns. We had Wix Harmony, Base 44, Squarespace. It was a big year for websites.
Yeah.
I really liked the Levi's ad because I thought the Toy Story tie-in was really smart. At the party where I was at, everyone was talking and then they saw Woody and everybody stopped what they were doing. They were like, whoa, okay, Woody's on the screen.
Right,
And
yeah.
I think that's smart. It's like he's like an influencer now, if you think about it, right?
Yeah.
And I thought that was a really great use of like creative and simplicity in one way, in one thing.
I love that as well, and directed by Kim Garrick, by the way, which is why it's so visually awesome. And I thought the branding, like the branding device of like, if you show the back of a pair of jeans, like this, the little red tag is the only branding.
Right.
Like it's so like subtle, but like such a
So good.
loud ad, but like tiny branding. Like the tensions like between that in that spot, I think worked like super well.
It reminds me of the Kraft Heinz work about like when you think of ketchup, you think Kraft Heinz. When you think of jeans, you think of that Levi's, tag.
Yeah, for sure.
How about we were cracking up at the Minions trailer. I don't know if that was a national buy. Did you guys see that? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, I did see that.
That one caught my attention. It was kind of like a little hack there as well, where the screen was white. We checked our computer when we were watching watching the game. Like, did this thing break? Do we need to refresh it? And then we see the little freaking minion running up too. I don't, do you guys actually know? Do you guys know anything about that? I know we don't look at a lot of the trailers, but
I wasn't ready for that, Tim. I don't know if you knew about that one.
No, Gino, we actually don't really cover the movie trailers just because like it's a whole other thing. It feels like a little separate from the brand marketing that's on the game.
yeah,
Although like the Grogu spot was really cute also. Like some of the Hollywood stuff this year was actually pretty interesting, I thought. And like the Xfinity Jurassic Park thing I think was really cool as well. So like
yeah,
in the general movie world, I think they had a good night.
The
yeah.
Netflix Brad Pitt spot, I'm still trying to figure out like what was the goal? Like what are they launching? It was like I'm assuming they're just getting all of Brad Pitt's movies on Netflix. Is that what it is?
Well, isn't it the new Cliff Booth movie that's
Oh,
coming
is that
out?
what it is?
I
Okay.
think that's what it is.
Yeah. So I thought a lot of people in my groups like that as well. They were like,
That
Yeah.
could be a whole little sub vertical for you guys for the
yeah,
next one.
And
Tim,
then
why
we
don't
should
you
talk
just
about
bring that
we,
on?
we should talk about the Duncan spot too. I thought the Duncan spot was
yeah,
great.
yeah.
Yeah, let's talk
It's
about it.
clearly aimed at like Gen X, right? Like or maybe millennial nostalgia, but like what I love about the Duncan campaign is they've clearly told Ben Affleck just do what you want, whatever you want with your friends as long as we're in it prominently. Like as long as the branding is in it prominently, you can just and you honestly get the sense that they're having fun making it.
Yeah.
And in that sense it's like really charming and
Well, I'll add to that. It seems like the cast and characters as celebrities are becoming a part of the brand, and it's not like random. Like we saw, like in my opinion, the Grubhub. I didn't understand the George Clooney placement. I know, it was a beautiful ad, well crafted, but like didn't really make sense to me. But like with the Duncan guys, it just makes complete sense. So that works for me in that sense.
yeah, we had this in our review actually. Is like it's funny that they chose a sitcom because the entire series of Duncan ads over the years is becoming like a sitcom. Like
Like
Brady's like a recurring character, and
Yeah.
it's got this whole vibe that's like a little bit looser and just more fun than like a lot of traditional like more scripted comedies. So I think they're really onto something. And I don't know how that did either on the ad meter or in public, whether the public loved that or not. But
I think it was like fourth on
was it
that.
okay? Well, that's pretty high.
Yeah, it's pretty high. Well, I think it was also like it reminded me of that TikTok trend where like it was like there's a trend where you just do a lot of random stuff in like 15 seconds, and it felt like so engaging. So like I felt like younger people would like it, and then more nostalgia people looking for nostalgia would also like it. So I thought it was this really good blend of like both generations.
Totally. Wonderful. Anything else that we missed
Spots we didn't
overall?
like.
You see,
Let's
you wanted to
see.
say that. All right.
Let's do it. You want to kick
I
us off,
mean,
Tim?
listen, I would just throw out quickly. I don't want to rag on brands, but like two brands that I thought are generally produce good work and didn't last night were State Farm and Mick Ultra. I think those two brands they do such good work often throughout the year. Like Mick Ultra just did that insane Miracle on Ice experiential event for a couple weeks ago. State Farm does great work on the Super Bowl. I know the Batman versus Bateman thing was supposed to be on the Super Bowl last year, got pushed out because of the wildfires. But a year before that, the Arnold Schwarzenegger, like they've done really good work on the game, and I just felt like this one was sort of felt like thrown together to me and like didn't make a whole lot of sense.
There was a new agency that was
That's a big
the
Well,
marketing arm. Yeah.
marketing arm, yeah.
Well, they've been on the roster for a while,
mm,
but I don't know if this was the first time they've done a Super Bowl, but it was the first time in a few years that
yeah, it's usually high dive, right?
it's usually high dive. Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree with you on that, Tim. I think those were my two kind of least favorite, but Michelob Ultra ranked second on ad meters, so I'm like, maybe I'm
Did it
not.
really? My Lord.
I'm not second, maybe it was pretty high. It was higher
It's
than
five. Yeah, it's
five.
five. Yeah,
Mick Ultra finished fifth on App Meter.
yeah.
Oh my God, that's
No,
wild.
the Mick Ultra one, I literally had a friend say, "Is this a skiing ad?" They were like so confused. But I think I don't know what they're going for. But they've been using like action sports more frequently.
Yeah, that's right. Even like their pickleball last year.
The Mick Ultra, yeah, yeah. Yeah, for the beer for athletes, right? Isn't that
Yeah.
like the brand platform?
What about you, Gino? What was your favorite, least favorite?
I'm looking through these. Just I'm looking at the ad meter right now. One that I did really like that didn't do very well in the ad meter was the Liquid IV. Take a look at me now, Phil Collins singing toilets. I thought that was fun. And also not taking a salesy approach of like just stay hydrated, like was the brand message at the end and with the subtle association with Liquid IV done by Anomaly. I thought that was a nice touch. Did you guys like that one?
To be totally honest, I didn't love that one. But, related to that was the Manscaped one, which we actually took out of our review because it was not a national. I
Could
mean, it
you
was
believe that?
national, but it was pregame.
Yeah, I couldn't believe that.
Yeah, it was. I think Manscaped kind of like tried to dupe some folks into like thinking that they actually had an in-game spot when they didn't, which
Hmm.
I feel bad because that was one of my favorites was the Manscaped ad. I thought it was really well done. Quality Meats did that one, and
Very
just
controversial, right? I did a pre-show and I said that will be the ad that's most remembered
mm,
from the Super Bowl. Like we called it the Was Up Awards.
nice.
And Jack selected Instacart. And I feel like, yeah, the Manscaped not being aired during this actual game ruined that award for me.
Yeah, it's a little frustrating. It was It was during the kickoff show. It wasn't even like between coin toss and kickoff. So yeah, that was kind of a drag. But
I
Yeah.
creatively, it's great.
I also
Yeah.
feel like this year, because of the game itself, a lot of the ads that were towards the back half of the game, I think, like kind of struggled. I forgot there was an ad that came right after the halftime show. Oh, it was the Svetka AI ad,
Yeah.
and it was the first ad after this like really powerful halftime show that like a lot of people were talking about, and it's like I don't think I would have wanted to be the ad right after that halftime show because I think a lot of people weren't paying attention probably.
Yeah.
So I think that messed up a lot of folks as well, I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Was not a fan of the Svedka ad. But the game was so boring.
It
Like
was.
the folks that got placed in like the first and second quarter had the advantage. And by after halftime show, like we were starting to lose attention
Yeah.
ourselves.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny when the game is bad, the ads have to be extra good, right? So that
Yeah.
people can have a good time. And I do think, again, I'll go back to I would say that this was one of the best nights overall of advertising we've had in a while on the game.
It felt like there was a lot of like product marketing, right? It felt very product marketing heavy or health marketing conscious with the Row ad and the Mike Tyson ad and even Liquid IV. That felt very health conscious, right? Like
Mhm.
so that's what stood out to me this year. I think a lot of people are really leaning into like some sort of purpose, and meaning behind their products. So that really stood out to me.
When did the Jesus ad run? Because I don't think I saw that.
I,
Very, very end, last pod. I think it was
Okay.
the second to last ad that ran on the game.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
feel
We must have started our
It was
live
like
stream
second
then.
2 minute warning in the fourth quarter.
I thought the execution craft on that was beautiful, to be honest with you all.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, it's a very different approach for them. Brian, you've covered this.
I interviewed them on this one, and yeah, it was their fourth Super Bowl, and it's a funny campaign because the craft has always been, I would say, top tier, really high level craft, and in previous years they really focused on social and economic issues and like kind of closing the gap between different divides. And I think, they kind of took if you think about it, like an approach from like what Nike would do with like Colin Kaepernick, like taking a statement on something. And I felt like this year their statement was broader, right? They told me they wanted to be intentionally broader, less political, right? And
Yeah.
uh,
More
it was focused,
inviting. Yeah.
yeah, it was focused more on just like there's too much going on in this world. So how about we simplify it? The ironic thing is it's airing during the Super Bowl where there's so much going on. I don't know if that really would hit. But yeah, I would say the craft wasn't as strong as previous years. I think it was still look good, but I feel like the messaging wasn't as like hitting. And Tim, I don't know if you had more thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess my main takeaway this year from He Gets Us is the previous years, the point was to be kind, be tolerant, like be a good person. This time it was more like society is completely breaking down. There's like sin and selfishness everywhere. It was less like a positive message and more like almost like fear mongering about where we're headed as a society. And I feel like that slightly more negative point of view versus the more uplifting point of view previously kind of is not the direction they probably want to go in.
Yeah.
And, like the idea in the previous executions of the campaign, which is like, we're all in this together. We got to be kind to each other. This spot ended on a woman just by herself. So what's the message? Like, you just got to remove yourself completely from society in order to feel good, or to like, you don't even bother engaging with your fellow man anymore.
Well, I'll tell you, if those fembots start multiplying, I'm going to be heading out solo myself.
Yeah, no doubt.
Big winner though is BBDO. I think they had the most ads in probably in Super Bowl history in one slot with the acquisition or the merge with FCB. FCB had, I think, I saw somebody text me, a source was saying like they had like 4 out of the 6 were from FCB. I don't know if that's true or not, but I mean that power to put their numbers up for sure.
Yeah, I think it was the first real test of that new merger, and we're going to see how they combine the teams and what it will look like. But I think it was a good positive start to, mergers are hard, and I think they've found a way to like really come out on top, whether you like the ads or not. I think, it's, what was it, 6 Super Bowl ads, I believe, this year. So that's not easy. And
then the Oikos, I think, was the 7th, but that was a regional buy. Cool.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Okay. Well, gentlemen, I'll let you guys get back to work. Thank you so much for the great coverage leading up to Super Bowl, and best of luck on A-List. We'll be seeing that in the future.
All right, man. Thanks. Good to chat.
Cool.
Thanks, Sheena.
All right.
That's all we got. Thanks for listening to our post-game show. I hope you enjoyed. Big shout out and thank you to Jon Evans at System 1, Tim Nudd, and Brian Bonilla from Ad Age for jumping in and giving us their takes. If you want to give us your takes, reach out to us on Instagram or LinkedIn. We'd love to hear it. Take care.